Well, welcome back to PWPL Presents Community Conversations. I'm Jenny Kilpel. I work at the Peter White Public Library. And today we're joined by Amy Clickner from the Lake Superior Community Partnership. Hello, Amy.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we got the sweater memo I see today.
Oh yeah, yes, top, well, waist up, of course,
Yes,
It's a whole different wardrobe world right now.
it
But
is.
that's a whole series on its own.
I know, Zoom meetings. I feel like
I
there's going to
know.
be a really funny reel of Zoom outtakes very soon.
I agree. Someone's gonna make money on it.
Oh, well, today we're going to talk economics and kind of our local economy. I know it's on a lot of people's minds, business owners and just consumers alike all have a lot of questions. So why don't we go ahead and get started? COVID-19 resources seem to be everywhere. There's almost so much information and saturation, you don't even know how to wade through it. So I know you're helping your members. Can you tell us what kind of resources you're offering?
Absolutely, and like you said, it's coming fast and furious and from all directions. And really, I spend most of my days right now, if I'm not working with businesses directly, is on webinars and informational type of calls to make sure that we're taking that information in, kind of going through it, summarizing it to bring it back out. I mean, part of our role, I think, is also to do that for business in particular, because they have so many other worries right now. And in particular, the small businesses that don't have a department, maybe a HR department or a legal department working on all of this. And so, we've spent a lot of time going through this, summarizing it, providing resources on our webpage, and that's where we're really, pushing everybody to. In particular, we can't sit down and meet with anybody, of course, but we are doing everything electronically or via phone with all of our small businesses. But anything from, we've produced a crisis toolkit, a resilience toolkit, a hibernation toolkit, if that's something that your business is one that has shut down and is hibernating basically until the stay-at-home order is lifted or you're phased in. And then we're just finalizing, and we'll be doing a webinar next week on the reopening of your business as we start talking about how that works.
And so give me an example of like a few things you might find in the crisis toolkit for business.
And that, that was extremely helpful to businesses when all of this first started in particular, because it was, we call it your bail team. So your banker, your accountant, your insurance provider, and your lawyer are really a huge team for you to lean on. Talk with them about some of the things you need to do. If you have any type of loans or debt that you're paying back, can you go to interest only? Can you move those out for, non-payment for a few days? The utility companies have been marvelous to work with. Talk with them about what you can and can't do and make those arrangements. So those are some of the things that I talked about. It also talked about, okay, what is your ability, your timeline that you can manage your cash flow right now? Do you need a line of credit? Do you need a loan? Are you going to go after any of the SBA, the federal programs, or some of the state programs, which we help them navigate as well? So the crisis checklist was really just start thinking about all those things that you can keep out of, try and keep your cash flow as strong as you can right now. And then it's also deciding what you do with employees. If you have employees, do you lay them off? Do you still pay them? Do you, get the PPP loan from the federal government that covers that? So many factors that they have to weigh. We tried to just make it as simple as something they can control. I think when we started this, no one had any control over what was happening. And by creating, like a template of things to think about that you can control, I think it brought the level of tension down with a lot of small businesses to say, yep, I can do these steps. I can do this. I feel better.
Right, because it does change how they're operating, and they probably had like a way it worked out, and now everything's gonna look different for
everything's different. It doesn't mean it's bad necessarily. So I think if you give businesses and entrepreneurs a box that they have to work within, they're going to figure out how to make it work. And that's why they're entrepreneurs, and that's why they do these things. They are creative and innovative and survivalists. And so, you see it happening all over. I mean, some of the restaurants that we've talked to as small businesses, their takeouts and their drive up and their delivery and their curbside have been amazing revenue generators for them during this difficult time. So reinventing themselves may be some of the things they keep moving forward as, you know, another opportunity for revenue generation.
Okay. So you've mentioned a few of the ways you're helping with businesses. Do you have a greater role in the regional economy with just what the economic recovery will look like? How is the LSCP helping with that?
So the restart of the economy is going to be very, very interesting, and no doubt, you know, the economics that we're going to be dealing with are quite devastating right now. I mean, the unemployment rate, the federal government is putting money out like no tomorrow, to help sustain business, to help sustain local governments. So as we look at all of these things, you know, we serve on a lot of different task forces at all different levels, local, regional, and state, to make sure we have a seat at the table to have those discussions. We also don't believe it's a one-size-fits-all approach in the state, and that includes the restart. We're in a little different position here than we are in Detroit. And so how can we look at this as a region and what works best for us to mitigate what's coming down the pike? Because it's going to be very different than Grand Rapids and Detroit and things like that. So I think that's one of our biggest messages as we serve on these task forces and have these discussions is cannot be one size fits all.
And so can you give us a sense from, you know, it's been since the state of the emergency, 6 weeks now, today being Thursday. Yeah, that's about right. It's a Tuesday. What day is it?
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I feel retired. I don't know.
Weeks of this state of emergency. So give us a sense of the state of the economy, you know, through that time. How are people doing now? Can you just, you've been talking with folks and sitting on these task forces, so.
Yeah, I mean, everything's trending downward. I mean, except for the unemployment rate, of course, which is, you know, incredibly high. Unemployment rates lag by a good month to 6 weeks. So we won't really even know those numbers for a few weeks yet, but I would anticipate them being at least in the 20% of unemployment with the number of folks that we have out of work right now. Anything that we're doing to phase in a startup will help mitigate those numbers. Now, as far as, you know, productivity and revenue lost during this time, it's nothing you're ever going to make up. You know, so the problem being is the numbers just aren't out there right now. We can talk about unemployment, we can talk about, you know, flights, you know, lack of passengers because lack of flights, you know, we can look at some of those numbers, but truly until we get through this, there's not a lot of good data out there to say, okay, this is what's happening, in particular down to the zip code or county level right now. So we can look at it as a state in a lot of ways, or as a country as what's happening, but we really want to know what in our region is happening, and we don't have very good data on that right now.
Okay, and so do you have any sense of which businesses maybe are suffering more right now than others? I mean, I'm sure restaurants are high on the list is what I would assume. But I mean, there's not much open right now. So can you just give us a sense of who's still able to maybe work remotely and who isn't and what that looks like?
So restaurants are probably faring a little better if they're able to manage the takeout, curbside, or delivery products. So, but some have chosen not to because the numbers just don't make sense. So they're suffering because there's nothing coming in, and there's still dollars going out, of course, you know, for different fixed expenses. When you look at, you know, things like, you know, we talked about it, hair, nails, any type of salon type work, any type of non-essential work for maybe your automotive, for your pet, for your children. None of they're non-essential. They're not open. They're not. There's nothing coming in. The good news is they can apply for unemployment, which has not been something in the past. But again, that's helping you get your paycheck. You still have the fixed cost for your business. So the biggest program that we can start to help small business in particular is the reopening of, in the phases of reopening. That's truly what's going to make a difference.
And have you had or given suggestions as to what you think should be first? I mean, we've been given lots of snippets as to what the plan might look like. By the time this airs, we might have a plan next week. Have you been able to have a voice in that at all?
So we talk about it a lot, and again, there's a lot of Zoom calls, there's a lot of conference calls, and I think it's, again, not a one size fits all. So here, opening a restaurant is probably not the same as opening one in downtown Detroit. So I think that if given the guidelines as, okay, we want to have social distancing remain, we want hygiene, we always want proper hygiene. Yeah. We want face coverings in some way, shape, or form from both customer and staff. I think if those parameters are set, I think restaurants, are a good place to start. I think small shops are a good place to start. I think you can even limit, hairdressers and nail salons. You just have to be able to meet those requirements that keep us safe and healthy. So I do think that we have a lot of opportunity to start phasing in those things. And maybe the restaurant it's 25% occupancy and you have 15 feet between tables and things like that. Once the rules come out, the businesses will figure out how to do it safely. And of course, the hygiene part is the most important. The cleaning in between, the not sharing of equipment. They're going to have to think through all of these things. You don't want salt and pepper shakers on the table that the next person's going to use. The whole dynamic is going to change. But the sooner we can get the rules and the timeline out, they will adjust, they will start working toward it. It's a light at the end of the tunnel. They know they only have to make it till X from a cash flow perspective when they can start seeing some revenue being generated. And that is going to be, such a blessing for most of these small businesses. I think, we're going to Walmart right now. We're going to Target, we're going to Meijer. Why is it any different if the same parameters fall for the downtown shops?
Sure. And so with that, I was able to listen into a bit of the webinar last week that you gave. And there was this statistic that was shared that, if the businesses don't start getting cash flow, a lot of businesses self-reported that they thought within 6 months they wouldn't have enough cash flow to be solvent.
Yep. Yep, and that was a lot of, with the Federal Reserve has done some surveys, and the Upper Peninsula we trust those numbers and those survey results because we had such a huge sampling, but it was dire. People were saying, 3 to 6 months, I'm not going to make it past that. When you have 40 to 50% of your business is saying, I can't do that, I won't make it, that's frightening. But yeah. Again, there's some of these programs that are helping them sustain at least a little bit. And again, if we can get the plan in place so they know I just need cash flow through May, whatever it is, and I can reopen my doors 25%, then 50%, then 75%, or whatever that looks like.
Right.
But again, they have some control. They're able to work toward that. They're able to adjust their business plan and their projections and their finances to do that. Right now, when you have everything so uncertain, the last thing in the world businesses like is uncertainty.
Right. And so that's another question. The uncertainty of the unemployment impact that you don't know how big it is. We have a guess because they say how many claims have been filed in the state. Yep. And so a lot of that's the Upper Peninsula probably makes up a portion of that. And so cash flow, the ability for people to go spend their money in these businesses once the economic restart happens might lag. So yep. How are you helping? What kind of conversation are you having around that and giving people ideas and tips moving forward with their business model to help them maximize their efforts and their resources?
Yeah, good question. So a couple things. One is, we've done some stories as well on the stimulus check. So of course, first and foremost, you have to make sure your basic needs are covered. But here's an opportunity to support local businesses with your stimulus check. And other ways, again, they're going to have to look at collaborating on marketing and reminding folks that they're open for business. I think our media has done a tremendous job of working with businesses and helping support, shop local. We're launching the Love on Local program that we're collaborating with several others, which is a gift card program that is used just like your credit card and debit card. We'll be launching that in the next couple weeks. We're hoping that will help. We've been talking to a lot of employers that are using gift cards right now for staff incentives or to support small business. This would be a way of doing it in a bigger, broader level, and reminding people through a program of sorts that we want to shop locally, we want to help these businesses. And I think that there's been a lot of comments out there that are very poignant about these are the businesses you ask to support your baseball team, your chorus, your son's trip, to wherever for school, to buy candy bars, to sell candy bars. This is a time when we have to return the favor and take a look at it. And I know up here we're going to do it.
Right. Yeah. I've been seeing a lot of those too, and it is a nice reminder.
Yep.
So is there anything else? We could talk about tourism and a lot of other things, but that's probably for another day.
The one thing I will say about tourism though, is that people aren't going to be ready, willing, and able to jump on a plane as soon as flights take. It's just still gonna be a perception that it's not a safe thing to do. So I do think that bodes well for locations like the Upper Peninsula, where you're going to still want to get after all this, it's going to be summer, you're going to want to get your family out, you want to do some things. I think we could be a really hot destination because people aren't going to be getting on planes. And I also think that there's a lot of discussion out there when you talk to other economic development agencies around the country. People are going to be deciding where they want to live. We've proven you can do business remotely, and we've proven you can do it remotely from Upper Michigan.
Right.
So if you're raising a family, you're in Chicago, Detroit, New York right now, is that where you're going to stay? I don't know. I mean, there's some theorists out there that are saying the move to suburban and rural areas is going to increase based on the fact that if and when this happens again, they don't want to be in a hotspot.
Right. Yeah. Or, have a place that they can go outdoors every day.
Exactly. And I think the other thing when we were talking about the openings that's important to mention is we have to get our healthcare open again. We know it's there to handle the crisis and the COVID cases, but so many of the routine maintenance to our health, the elective surgeries, we've got to get them back in business with that, because that's another area. The hospitals, as you see of all the layoffs in the major hospitals downstate, these are things that are revenue generators for them to stay alive. We up here, again, are not a Detroit hospital. So how do our hospitals start, phasing in and opening up those services that we all need besides, and do it safely, and, start working on the revenue generation, because again, we need our healthcare system. We're blessed with amazing healthcare system in Marquette County, but we've got to get those other services up and open again too.
Yeah. Is there anything else that that you want the community to know right now?
I think the biggest thing is, again, we talked about the information coming fast and furious. We're here. You don't have to be an investor in the partnership for us to support and help you. We're here for everybody, all size, all sector, all stage of company, but just reach out. This is not the time to go it alone. Lean on those, leverage those that are on your team. I said your bail team, your banker, your accountant, your insurance provider, your attorney, your lawyer, the partnership, other economic development folks that are helping with these different programs. There's no need to go it alone. build that team, lean on that team. That's what we're here for. And the more we can get that message out, the more we can work with businesses sooner rather than sometimes too late.
Right. Yeah, that's great advice. Especially since I saw you guys yesterday were sitting in on a small business. Was that 2 days ago?
They all run together.
Week. That small business association meeting.
Yep, that was a phenomenal meeting.
Yeah, so it's nice to see, that Marquette has a voice, and it sounds like in a lot of places. So thank you.
Our partnership with SBAM is wonderful. And so that's another thing we launched earlier than we had planned to. So basically rip up your 2020 strategic plan pretty much, I guess. And we moved up our partnership with SBAM because we knew the services, the benefits, the collaboration that we could get from partnering with them was critical now versus waiting and having a nice little party to announce it or whatever. So we moved all of that up, and I'm glad we did. But again, you look at your plans for 2020 and I'm like, yeah, I didn't have pandemic in it. Our webinar series didn't have, crisis management in a pandemic or anything like that. But
right.
The big word that everybody keeps using is pivot. I think it's going to be one of those overused words this year, but everybody's pivoting to make sure that they get what needs to happen, and it's happening.
Right. Yeah. Anything that's true of people in the UP, they're very adaptable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much. We've been asking all of the people who we interview what the Peter White Public Library can do to aid in recovery as we come out of this.
Well, I do think, I love that you guys are doing this and getting the word out. I think you're such an important asset to the community. Again, as soon as you're able to reopen, I think you're going to be a safe spot and something familiar for people. So I think that's going to be important. Supporting local purchasing, which I know you already do, but anything that you can do along those lines, help share those messages. But again, I think you're such a heart of the community that being able to open your doors is going to be so important for so many people that love the library. I mean, my mom is beside herself. I had to finally show her how to read on her iPad, and that's just not something an 81-year-old wants to do. She wants to go get 12 more books to read. So, I mean, it's getting back to something familiar and normal and a happy place in a sense. So appreciate all you do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're all looking forward to getting in for those books too.
I know.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having us. Have a good day.
Thanks.